I craned my neck round to take in my last San Fran rays. The leathery, middle-aged couple behind me in the queue stared back suspiciously, as if I was about to ask them for a photo, seeing as how they were so pretty. They looked as happy together as a yesterday and a hasbian. With a loud sniff, I turned my back on them. I ran my fingers upwards through my hair, making sure all my dyed spikes were in place. Alan hated it when I gelled my hair. He liked the floppy effete English look. And very far that had got me too, all the way to America and back in a big pointless circle, like a bag with a broken wing trying to migrate. All I had to show for it was a tan like Jordan's and a cash gift from Alan to help me on my way. More like to help him get his way. It almost shut the gate on my wheelie case. He'd been so keen to see the back of me. So much for binational coupledom. Bored with the wait, I tensed my arm, watching muscles tauten out of the corner of my eye. Hikes, long swims, rock climbing. Alan did like his sports. I was skinny before, flat as a pink wafer biscuit, not quite Jean-Claude yet, but my pecs pressed tightly against my t-shirt and I filled my skinny jeans jauntily at the rear. I might be 24, but I still looked like a teenager. So there, Alan, you looked every one of your 40 years. The back of my hand rose wistfully to rest under my chin, and I loved it. A Hispanic guy wheeled by on an airport mini truck thingy. "Nice shoes," he called through his moustache as he buzzed past. "Thanks," I called back, wriggling my fingers at him. My spotless white Converse Chuck Taylor All-Stars with red heart detail. I had to wipe them down with a bleach solution after each wear, but it was worth it. Even this guy liked them, and my gaydar wasn't. Fag stag, I decided. The straight guy wanted some dazzle dust to rub off on him. The queue inched on. I was nearly at the security check. I took off my watch, checked my pockets, and lifted a black plastic tray from a stack. I put my satchel in it along with the watch. I walked through the security gates and off went the alarm. "Step this way, please, sir." A rugged guard with a few inches on me waved me to one side. I raised my hands for a pat down. He was definitely my type. Big, bearded, hairy, in other words, a bear. "I promise, officer. I will come quietly." Alan had been a bear too. 6'2", ex-wrestler, beef and beer man. I sighed and decided to take comfort in the moment. The guard patted my torso and back with both hands, then balanced on bent knees to run his hands from my thighs to my ankles. "You're clear," he said, straightening up. Probably the earring. My hand rose to the crystal stud. "Thank you," I murmured coyly with downcast lashes. I collected my things. Sitting in the gate, staring out at the runway, I smelled eau du scarlet. Rhett had tossed me to the curb, and there had been tears and sobs and empty promises. But tomorrow would be another day. Tomorrow I would be in Guildford, drinking pear cider with Judy and Candy in the Coach and Horses, smoking too many cigarettes, and being assured Alan was a grade A prick. We'd get lathered and probably end up in the palace, dancing and shrieking, and letting everyone know the Queen was back in residence. Guildford wasn't much, but it was home. If I'd spent more time there and less time winking at older men on slippery dance floors in London, I wouldn't be here now. Boarding was announced, along with many platitudes about enjoying the flight, having a nice landing, and getting lucky in the toilets. Okay, that wasn't announced, but one can hope. As I held my boarding pass up for inspection by the emerald-clad crew, I spotted a fellow friend of Dorothy. The steward, black, around my age but shorter, but not as pretty, met my gaze and winked, gay as Christmas. I smiled back. "I like your eye makeup," I whispered, sotto voice, very subtle. And it was. "It's Dior," he whispered back. The couple behind me once again exchanged frozen looks. The steward and I matched that eye exchange with one of our own. Let me show you to your seat, sir, he said out loud with what sounded like a southern accent, and zipped off down the aisle. As I followed, he turned over and said, "What's their problem? I bet they're from Texas. If anyone is DR, it's them." They should dodge the whole state, I agreed. "You're English," he noted, slipping like a sea snake around a fat passenger trying to shove his luggage overhead. "I just love your accent. Let me find you a seat in here." We passed a deserted first class and were in business class cabin. "My seat's economy," I said, confused. "I know, but the flat's half empty and no one will notice, sugar." He winked again. "You gotta take care of family, see." He stopped at a row by a window. "This place is free. The passenger had to disembark." Drunk. He rolled his eyes and pointed at the aisle seats. "Great," I said. "Thanks very much." I gave him a wink for good measure, since he seemed to like them. "No problem." He winked once more. "You just whistle if you need anything. You know how to whistle, don't you?" A grin spread across my face. "I just put my lips together and blow." He giggled. "You got it, sugar. You have a great fight, Bo." With a nod, he bounced on down the aisle. I pushed my satchel into the overhead locker and slipped into my seat. The seat in the middle was empty, but by the window, a large, older man sat slumped, head to one side, his eyes closed under a pair of glasses. I checked him out. He wore a blue-red Sox baseball cap over unruly brown locks and a couple of days' worth of stubble on his rounded chin. His frames lay at an angle across his nose. He wore a rumpled, checked shirt open over a faded grey t-shirt and jeans. His belly was ample and his thighs stretched the denim nicely. I wondered if the helpful steward was matchmaking. Maybe he'd gaydar this guy and he liked to see twinks and bears get it together. There were websites for people who enjoyed watching that sort of thing. As I rummaged for a magazine in the seat pocket in front of me, he stirred, sat up and rubbed his eyes. I glanced over at him as his glasses fell into his lap. He met my look with a pair of eyes as blue as the summer sky over Highgate Hill. "Oh," he said, scratching his head under his cap. Must have fallen asleep." He smiled at me. "Yes, you seem to have," I said primly. What an opening line. I spread the magazine on my lap. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him clean his glasses on his shirt and gaze out of the little round window. It was dark now. He didn't speak again until we'd started to taxi. "Are you heading home?" A small gold stud glinted in his ear. "I am. Back to sunny England," I said, looking up from my page and simpering slightly nervous. "That's great," he said in a friendly way. "Did you have a good trip?" I paused. If he hadn't already guessed I was gay, I didn't mind hairpin dropping. "It started off well, but then my guy dumped me." "Oh no," he exclaimed sympathetically. "That sucks." He shook his head. "Breakups are always hard, and that's the truth." He had a gorgeous drawl that I couldn't quite place, not from Texas, judging by his reaction. "Yes," I answered, meeting his eye and nodding. "I came out here for him, actually." He tutted. "How'd you meet?" "DRA," I told him. He looked puzzled. "Disco-related accident," I translated. "I slipped while I was dancing and he helped me up at a club in London." "Do you live in London?" "No, Guildford. It's outside London, very sleepy." Talk about being the only gay in the village. I cackled but stopped as he continued to look blank. But it didn't work out with this guy. I don't want to be nosy. No, that's fine. We just weren't suited in the end. He was older, not that that was the problem, I hastened to add. But he was kind of stuck in his ways. Stuck in his ways, huh? Yeah, that'll come with age. His eyes crinkled at me. He was a good listener. By takeoff, we'd laughed over Alan's obsession with poor safe products, with which every surface had to be wiped and the toilet had to be cleaned so that his Doberman could lick away without ingesting chemicals. I told him how the ceramic ducks all had to face north and how Alan would cut me off in restaurants because he thought he knew better. Kind of controlling. Yes, he was. As the plane tilted to the right, we both gazed down at San Fran Airport stretched out below us, glittering like a drag queen's undies. Do you want to sit here so as you can see out the window? He patted the seat between us. Thanks, I would. That's very kind of you. I changed seats, trying not to scramble with giddy joy. Thing is, you can't force people to do nothing they don't want to. He picked up our conversation as the plane leveled. You gotta have your own free will. Yes, yes, I said, gazing dreamily at him. You make your own choice, no point pretending. You gotta choose your own path. Can't no one choose it for you. Yes, I breathed. He chuckled. But listen to me running on, you know, you're still young. You got plenty of time to find your way. My bad. I'm Julian, by the way. And you? Excuse me, my name's Blake. Blake Shrapnel. He held out his hand. That's quite a name, I giggled, putting my hand in his paw. Yes, it is. Very merry. He chuckled again, like honey glugging in a jar. By the time dinner was served, I'd learned that Blake was from nowhere. No place, just past Nothingville. Actually, that was Lynchburg, Virginia, near Bedford County. But hey, when the shoe fits. He now lived in a condo in New Jersey. He was successfully manufacturing spare parts and was attending a series of conferences at home and abroad, London being the third port of call. He was single. Yes, I dare to ask. And in return, he was very interested in hearing about my string of disastrous dalliances. We both had red wine with our food. Afterwards, we companionably watched the same movie. I fell asleep sometime after midnight. As I dozed off, I was very aware of Blake's comfortable bulk shifting next to me. We hadn't talked about meeting up in London. We danced around it, though. I'd mentioned a possible visit next week. He'd hinted that he was free on Sunday. If he was going to do it, he still had time to pop the question. I wasn't going to ask first. Bears chased, that was nature's law. It would be too delicious to meet Mr. Right or Mr. Right now. I wasn't picky. While fleeing Mr. Wrong, who kicked me out on my arse, Alan would just hate that. A girl can dream. He shook my shoulder gently to wake me for landing. He'd taken his glasses off and his eyes were bigger and bluer in the sunlight flooding in the cabin. You were sleeping like an angel, he rumbled, patting my arm tenderly, an intimate touch, like a husband comforting a wife. I sat up, rubbing sleep from my eyes and trying to flatten my hair down, whose blue spikes seemed to be leaning stiffly to one side like a line of drunken soldiers. My t-shirt had rocked up around my midriff, and one shoe had vanished under the chair in front. Listen, Julian, I wanted to ask you. He looked down and began to polish his lenses on his shirt. We got to talking a whole lot last night. I nodded and my heart lurched. And it seems like you've had a lot of bad luck with men, and it sounds to me like you need someone good in your life. Sure as the grass is green. I couldn't agree more, I thought, and nodded again, looking at him expectantly. I'm not saying I'm him, but I was thinking that we might meet up in London. I know some real good places. He became very concerned with his lenses now, rubbing at them nervously. That I'd like to take you. A smile began to spread across my face. So, I wanted to ask you. His hand stilled, and he met my eye with his gaze as blue as steel. Are you ready to accept the Lord Jesus Christ as your personal Savior? Just then, the black steward slithered past our seats, turned to wink at me and called, "Did you have a good flight, bro?" It was really special. Thanks a lot, bro, I thought.